Kazakhstan authorities have their own interest to satisfy journalists' demands as they must earn points at the world stage. The country is planning to run for the UN Council on Human Rights in 2012. Both local and foreign experts discuss Astana's chances right now. Council members are elected through a direct secret voting, and Kazakhstan will have to convince more than half of 47 countries of its good intentions.
Foreign Affairs Ministry informs that UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Navaneh Pillay supported the intention of Astana to run for the Human Rights Council in 2012. However, before receiving the prestigious position, Kazakhstan will have to undergo numerous inspections by the human rights organization.
A plenipotentiary on human rights within the country largely depends on the local political authorities, whereas it is impossible to negotiate with international observers, especially on human rights, as they will assess the issue unbiased.
Astana wants to join the organization, which monitors the human rights situation in all countries of the world, helping states to improve legislation in the area. However, NGO representatives say that Kazakhstan itself is in urgent need of help. Almost all of this year's meetings of the OSCE, which is currently chaired by Kazakhstan, are accompanied with rallies and protests. There are simply too many human rights violations in the country, as journalists and human rights activists are being imprisoned, and the condition of independent media only worsened in 2010.
It is impossible to comply with European human rights standards without independent press, which see the situation differently than the state.
This and any other violation may cause the failure of Kazakhstan in the UN Council elections. There are only 47 places available and usually twice as many candidates willing to join. In 2001, even the United States was not elected after the secret vote of the Council.
When electing members of the Council, member states shall take into account the contribution of candidates to the promotion and protection of human rights. The members of the Council shall serve for a period of 3 years and shall not be eligible for immediate re-election after 2 consecutive terms. The General Assembly, by a 2/3 majority of the members present and voting, may suspend the rights of membership of the Council of a member of the Council that commits gross and systematic violations of human rights.
Kazakh authorities are used to giving out promises. Electoral legislation reform, the development of human rights institutions and independent media are only a few of the commitments that Astana undertook to become the OSCE chair. Judging by the single-party parliament and numerous lawsuits against independent newspapers, the promises were not fulfilled. However, the UN Council on Human Rights has a loophole that Astana can use. During elections, each region receives a certain number of seats in accordance with the quota set by the population rate. Kazakhstan may press other Central Asian republics to simply withdraw from elections. Moreover, since the OSCE so blindly trusts Kazakh diplomats, perhaps the same can happen with the UN.
It's not easy for youth to decide whom to believe, the authorities of Kazakhstan or their opponents, as the struggle to win over the younger generation is still growing. Meanwhile, national patriotic movements call for change and threaten to organize large-scale rallies in April. In turn, the Youth Policy Department also had a meeting to come up with an action plan for the future.
The battle for young minds is underway in Almaty's city administration. The Youth Policy Department is holding a meeting with NGOs, as they are eager to cooperate, although no one knows what to offer the young people besides protest. You said that you organize festivals and competitions. Don't you think that culture management replaces youth policy management?
I have not seen a strong youth organization which did something original in the past 10 years. Show me one. As a young, new leader, I have never seen such an organization.
Meanwhile, the National Patriotic Club, Ruh Pentil, encourages young people to hold rallies. The club held a special meeting, wrote a rally authorization request to the city administration, and even adopted a motto of "We want change." Unfortunately, no one knows what kind of change exactly.
We were invited here to find out about your ideas. What is the purpose of the rally?
Supposedly, the rally should become a platform for the expression of diverse views. The idea was already supported by the Social Democratic Party Azad, non-registered party Alga, as well as Bolashak, Abiroy and Kaznet Freedom Movement. The leaders of other public organizations were skeptical about the new initiative. Everything should be presented to the city administration, up to each poster and every word, in order not to destabilize the society. Right now, no one knows who will do and say what at the rally. There is no accord among activists, although even this commotion of youth NGOs is not seen that often. That is exactly why it troubles Kazakh political elders. Apparently, youth activism may be seen as a threat for the government and a potential resource well for the opposition. Hence, the former organizes concerts and the latter calls for the rallies.
Meanwhile, the details of a suicide of a young official were disclosed in eastern Kazakhstan. The administration of the Regional Civil Service Department announced the results of the investigation of Medet Kasinjanov's death.
In early December, the 29-year-old assistant to deputy governor died in a hospital after jumping out of the fifth-floor window of the regional administration building. Almost immediately, messages from some Sabina Akhatova appeared on several websites of the city. She blamed the leadership of the region for the incident. However, the investigation revealed that the suicide was a result of major loan debts. The Civil Affairs Department supports the version of the police. The inspection of the administration didn't reveal any violations there either. Interestingly, there is no person named Sabina Akhatova in the region. Officials say that similar anonymous posts cannot become a reason for launching an investigation on state departments. Our department cannot examine anonymous appeals. If you, for example, ask us something, we will give you an answer, but we cannot deal with a load of anonymous questions. I know that this already happened this year.
Gasoline prices have dropped in Kazakhstan. According to the company Kazagro Marketing, retail prices for the most popular brands of gasoline as well as diesel fuel have decreased by almost 6%.
The price of the most popular brand of gasoline has dropped by less than 1 cent compared to the last year and now doesn't exceed 55 cents on average. Last December, the government had set a fixed retail price for several of the most popular brands of gasoline, while in February the Energy and Mineral Resources Ministry has set the limits on the prices for other fuels and lubricants. According to the Department of Energy, the new pricing policy on the fuel market will be maintained in March as well.
Meanwhile, the first oil museum has opened in Almaty. It is located in the building of Kazakh British Technical University. Interestingly, the same room previously hosted the museum of the first president, which was later moved to Astana. The new exposition is small as it has only a few models and 243 photographs documenting the history of oil production in the country.
The opening of the landmark museum was modest and quiet. The old industry is key for the state economy. At the moment, a large number of mining companies, both multinational and private, are operating in Kazakhstan. The former are in the center of government's attention. Kazakh officials threatened to cancel long-term contracts with foreign oil companies which currently have tax preferences. In April, the finance ministry will propose to lift the benefits and reinstate the normal tax regime. Oil mining veterans say that at the early days of independent Kazakhstan, contracts signed with mining companies were not always beneficial for the country. Naturally, our specialists and politicians were inexperienced at first. Perhaps some contracts were signed not in our favor, as happened with Tengiz Chevrolet Oil, for example.
These were the latest updates from Kazakhstan. Thank you for being with us and goodbye.